pangarap nyo ay pangarap ko.
Magandang araw. Ano nga ba ang nais marinig ni Juan de la Cruz sa unang State of the Nation address ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos Jr.? Sama-sama nating suriin ang estado ng bansa kasama ang ilan sa mga veteranong journalist ng One News at One PH. Ito ang Sona 2022, ang special coverage ng One News at One PH. All sides, all the time. At makakasama po natin sa ating coverage ngayong araw ang mobile journalists na nandoon sa Quezon City. Si Pamela Vasquez, nasa mismong batasang pambansa. Kasama rin natin sina Cesar Cacnio at King Senko na nasa mismong Commonwealth Avenue naman. At kinocover po ang mga pangyayari sa labas ng batasan. Alamin muna natin ang latest sa batasang pambansa. Live on the ground na nag-uulat ang ating mobile journalist na si Pamela Vasquez para bigyan tayo ng update. Pamela, ano ang latest dyan?
Cheryl, formal na nga binuksan ng House of Representatives ang first regular session para sa 19th Congress kaninang 10 a.m. At ito nga, nahalalang pinsan ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos na si later 1st District Representative Martin Romualdez bilang House Speaker na matagal nang matunog ang pangalan para sa posisyon. 309 lawmakers ang present kung saan 283 sa mga ito ang bumoto ng yes, 22 ang nag-abstain habang isa naman ang nag-no. Cheryl, overall naging banayad naman yung nangyaring botohan. Si Romualdez ang lone nominee o pangalan niya lang ang nabanggit. Walang iba kundi ng kanyang pamangkin at panganay na anak ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos na si Ilocos Norte 1st District Representative Sandro Marcos. Cheryl?
Nagkaroon ka na ba ng pagkakataon na Pamela na makakausap ng mga bisita dyan kung ano ang kanilang magiging expectation sa unang sona ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos?
Kanina, Cheryl, may nakausap tayong ilang mga congressman at woman gaya nila Taguig Representative Ading Cruz Jr., Quezon City Representative Ralph Tulfo na at Representative San Juan del Monte, Representative Florida Robes, kung saan umaasa sila na matalakay sana ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos yung usapin gaya ng ekonomiya, agrikultura, food security at syempre yung ongoing COVID or yung COVID response ng bansa. Cheryl?
At kumusta naman ang seguridad dyan sa paligid ng batasan ngayon, Pam?
Cheryl, so far yung protocols are strictly implemented. Lahat ng guests ay kailangan kanina dumaretso doon sa South Wing Annex para isubmit yung mga requirements gaya nga ng health declaration form at yung negative RT-PCR test. At saka bago mag-proceed doon sa presidential security group tagging, kanina ay may mga nag-ikot-ikot ng security kasama yung mga K9 units kung saan dito nag-ikot-ikot sila dito kung saan nakapwesto yung mga media. Cheryl?
At kanina nga nung nabanggit mo, Pam, na nagbotohan na, no? Sabi mo ay nasa 293 ang bumoto at ang House Speaker na ay si Congressman Romualdez. At meron nabanggit na nag-iisang nag-no. Sino tong nag-iisang bumoto ng no?
Oh, Cheryl, yung isang nag-no na lawmaker ay si Albay Representative Edsel Dagman. Pero ang tanging paliwanag or explanation niya lang dito ay parte raw siya kasi ng genuine political opposition. Pero nauna na niya sinabi, Cheryl, na sisiguraduhin niya na magkakaroon daw ng authentic minority bloc sa 19th Congress. Cheryl?
Alright, maraming salamat. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez. Samantala, silipin naman po natin ang mga kilos protesta ng ilang mga grupo. Nag-uulat ang mobile journalist na si King Senko mula sa Commonwealth Avenue para sa updates. King, kumusta ang mga nagpoprotesta dyan?
Cheryl, nandito tayo sa kinalalagyan kanina ng umabot ayon sa QCTV na 5,000 na nagpoprotesta. No? Pero sa ngayon, kung napapansin nyo, maluwag malinis na dito sa kinalalagyan natin dahil bumuhos ang malakas na ulan. Yung malakas na ulan na yan ang dahilan kung bakit nagsipag-alisan. Hindi natin alam kung nagsipag-uwian o magbabalikan pa dito yung mga rallyista, pero sa ngayon talaga wala nang tao dito. Ang trapiko, dire-diretso ang daloy. At kung kanina, parang 3 linya lang ang nakakadaloy dito. Ngayon, okay na. Lahat nagagamit na ng mga motorista. Kung meron man tayo napansin na pagbabago nung nawala ang mga rallyista, ang mga kapulisan, very visible halos sa bawat kanto dito sa Commonwealth.
King, nung una, diba, dininay ng QCLGU yung permit to rally sa kalsada ng Commonwealth. Pero matapos yung naging dialogue, eto na, nagkapagbigay na sila ng permit at pinayagan along Commonwealth, tama ba? Pero hanggang Tandang Sora lamang?
Okay, sorry Sheryl, no? Wala yata ako naririnig mula sa audio mo dyan.
Can you hear me now, King? All right. Yan po si King Seso, nag-uulat along Commonwealth Avenue at katulad po ng nakita natin doon ay dahil nga po sa buhos, malakas na buhos ng ulan kanina ay wala na po yung mga protesters doon o mga demonstrador o rallyista. Samantala sa Kamaang Palad, ay naputol po, ayun nga, ang signal natin sa ating journalist na si Cesar Cacnyo naman. Kaya sa puntong ito, punta na po tayo sa mga news editor ng One News at One PH na makakasama po natin sa pagtalakay ng mga issue na kinakaharap ng bansa.
Joe V. Francisco, isang veteranong reporter at news anchor na nag-cover ng politics mula sa Kamara hanggang sa Malacanang. Regina Lay, go-to journalist sa larangan ng business news. Bitbit niya ang karanasan mula sa international media companies gaya ng Bloomberg at Channel News Asia. Manny Mogato, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter na nag-cover ng ilang major security and defense stories. Mula sa people power laban kay Marcos Sr. hanggang sa kontrobersyal na drug war ni Duterte. At si Patrick Paez, na ngayon ay head ng Signal News Department. Isang veteranong journalist na nakilala bilang isa sa mga nag-cover ng gera sa Afghanistan noong 2001.
Nakilala nyo na po ang ating mga experts ngayon. Bakit kayo natatawa? Diba?
Luluman picture eh.
Yun lang. Gusto ito, pinapakita lamang natin mga kapatid kung nakailang Sona na po ang ating mga ang ating mga editors in chief po natin ngayon pagdating sa politika, sa ekonomiya, sa ating foreign policy. Pero we've been monitoring this itong Sona at the past few days nakita natin yung paiba-ibang desisyon, yung mga hindi natin nakita noong mga nakalipas na Sona ng ibang Pangulo. Ngayon, anong napansin yung pagbabago? Siguro simulan ko sa sino bang pinakamaraming Sona ng natutukan?
Ay, si Manny siguro.
Si Manny siguro.
Boss Manny.
Si Manny muna. Alam mo, ang inaasahan ko sa Sona ito ni Pangulong Marcos, he will be strict na susundin niya yung script at babasahin niya ng maigi. So, tingin ko, 1 oras.
Or maybe
mahaba
less?
na.
Mahaba na yung 1 oras.
Kasi si Pangulong Duterte, puro adlib eh. At minsan umabot ng 2 oras. May mura pa kasama. Pero ang pinakamaraming drama si Pangulong Gloria. Di ba? May mga bangang papel pa. Meron pang mga nakatanim sa audience.
To interview.
Ito yung mga simula.
Oo, pero si Pangulong Ramos, straightforward.
Si Pinoy naman, nauso sa panahon ni President Noynoy Aquino, mga PowerPoint presentations. May mga presentations na kasabay sa presentation sa speech. So mga visual aids, he used a lot of visual aids. President Noynoy. President Gloria Arroyo used a lot of personalities within the audience. Embedded in the
Parang
audience.
si Obama, di ba?
So anong ina-expect natin? Ano ang nakikita nyo dito sa administrasyong Marcos na ito?
Ako, I think, first of all, the manners, right?
We were just talking about this.
We've seen about from President Duterte. He broke basically all conventions. Okay, so we expect this president to I wouldn't like to say behave more like a president, but more to be the conventional president in terms of style and manners. So he'll stick to his script.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we are going to see a more statesman
Yes.
type of president. I don't think na mag-deviate siya from the script. And one thing we were talking about kanina was how interesting it was na may menu this time around.
Right. Even
Na wala na
went on
before.
social media what the meals that they're going to have, the merienda that they're going to have in the House of Representatives today. I think on top of that is sago at gulaman.
May halo-halo pa.
May halo-halo at saka kesong puti at pandesal.
Very Filipino.
Pero the fact na nag-print pa sila ng menu, it's on nice cardboard paper. These are the little touches na wala sa Sona
No,
in
the past president. Pero ito ay, sabi nga natin, nung una, sa kay Marcos Sr. ba, ganito na yung nakita natin?
I think we're going to see a lot of, starting from the inauguration,
Yes.
and I think we're going to see a lot of elegance, to use that word, in the 6 years or so of President Bongbong Marcos.
And
I mean,
siguro-
it's a mark of the family, I guess. No?
Pero,
It's their style.
Tinatanong mo kami sa dating Sona ng Pangulong Marcos na tatay niya. Hindi namin lahat inabot yun.
Talaga ba?
Sona nung panahon ni Marcos. During the time of Marcos, I think, it was very...
I think-
the Sona is a U.S. presidential system tradition.
Na kinuha natin.
Na kinuha natin, bumabalik.
Kung napapansin mo, Cheryl, sa likod mo, bagong bihis pati yung so there will be a very new look, Hindi, I mean, it's an old structure, pero there will be a new look. Aside from si Direk Paul will surely have, sabi niya, iba-ibang shots, na hindi natin pa nakikita.
At inayos talaga ang batasang
Yes,
pambansa na
Kita mo
gumastos
ba?
daw ng
100
mahigit
million.
around 100 million pesos.
Yeah. So, ang pinalitan dyan mainly mga ilaw kasi medyo alam niyo naman madilim na ng kaunti doon
Right,
sa
right.
sabi
Better
nila,
lighting.
malamlam, sabi nila, So, yan, tapos niligyan ng distansya yung mga upuan. Kaya yung first gallery na tinatawag dati ay wala ng first gallery.
Yes. And new tables. I think bago yung mga lamesa. Sabi ng reporter natin who reported about the makeover of the session hall, it's very tasteful. Mukhang mamahalin. So again,
After the pandemic, ayan, marami din, I'm sure, hindi mawawala dyan ang who's wearing who. May red carpet na ulit dahil nagluwag na.
Aba, oo.
Lahat, diba? Meron ng actual na audience, hindi na lamang virtual. So, yan ang ilan sa mga aabangan natin. Samantala, ngayon, pag-usapan na po natin ang tinaguriang President's Men and Women. Magtitimon sa usaping ito ang ating news editor, of course, Patrick Paez, at Sir P, ayan, ilatag mo muna sa amin, sino-sino ba ang mga ito?
okay, do we have a material? May material ba tayo? Do we have something to show?
Oo, tignan natin yung mga graphics na hinanda natin. Mahalaga. Ano yung kahalagahan ng mga nakapaligid
Well,
sa
we
Pangulo?
know that the cabinet is almost complete except, let's say, for the Department of
DOH.
the housing.
The science.
The science, the OST. But safe to say it's more or less complete. But here in this thing about the president's men and women, we're looking at the few people who we say or we think has the president's ears or have the president's ears. We're starting off with what is known as the little president, the executive secretary. That's Attorney Vic Rodriguez. We know him to be the spokesman of BBM during the campaign. Okay, he was also the lawyer in the electoral protest. He has a distinction for being the youngest barangay chairman in Quezon City when he was 19 years old. He was also the former assistant of the chief of the Quezon City Business Permits and Licensing Office. And he is also a member of the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas, which we all know is a party. It's a minor party. It's not a very well-known party, but we all know that the president run under this party. So that's what we know of Attorney Vic Rodriguez.
Expected na ba during the campaign period na siya ang mapipiling executive secretary? Kasi kung titignan natin yung background, sa pagkakaalam ko, kasi tinanong ko, how long have you known PBBM nung kami nagkausap? Sabi niya, pumasok lamang siya sa grupo nung natalo si PBBM.
Right.
And that's about it.
They don't go a long way back.
Yes.
Okay, but we also have to remember that he has been, on top of being spokesman or the electoral protest lawyer, he has been the chief of staff of BBM. So, konting tumbling na lang yun, Cheryl, no? From being chief of staff of candidate BBM to being the executive secretary. I think it was a logical move.
Bago nga lamang itong first Sona, may malaking balita.
Right.
I was just going to chismis pa siya that
on
he
the
has
executive-
resigned.
Yes, that he resigned.
Ay, intriga yun.
Ha?
Parang na-intriga lang.
Intriga lang.
Oo.
Intriga. Pero hindi magsisimula ang ganitong balita
Kung
wala sa loob, diba?
Yes. Yung curious or intriguing part doon, Manny, Regina, Jovi, at Cheryl, is that the attacks were coming from people who are identified as supporters of BBM. So that's,
From within the circle.
That's a very interesting detail that with regards to this attacks and this pressure on Attorney Vic Rodriguez to resign. It's coming from within, so to speak.
Normal yan eh. Sa isang Pangulo na nahalal na may majority, siyempre maraming faksyon.
Correct.
At
Nagpo-form na yung mga factions ngayon.
Marami nag-aagawa ng posisyon. Normal lang
Normal yan.
in fighting.
Oo, it's
Okay.
part of that. No?
Pero sabi nga, nananatili siya as the executive secretary. For now, ayan, titignan natin. So, sino pa? Sir.
Okay, next we have who we can call as sa may graphics
Yung
natin yan.
BF,
The
yan.
President's BFF kung tawagin.
Ayan.
The President's best friend forever. Yan. And he is Antonio Lagdameo Jr., the President's BFF. Actually, ang BFF talaga ni President Bongbong Marcos yung namayapang si Paul Daza. Oh, kababata niya talaga to. Ito po si Congressman Lagdameo is many years President BBM Senior, Junior. Mas bata to. So, officially, he has been designated as Special Assistant to the President. Okay, this is a new position actually, that we saw created during the time of President Duterte. But again, it's proving to be useful to the President, to the incumbent, to the current President. So, nagkaroon pa rin ng position na SAP. Back then, during Duterte, that was Senator Bongo. Now, it is Congressman or former Congressman Antonio Lagdameo Jr., better known as the husband of
Don
Zulueta. Yan. So, yan. He comes from a very wealthy family in Davao City, the Banana family, Regina, right?
Interesting nga because this family was also, we know this family to also be close to former President Duterte. So
Right.
parang,
Davao, the Davao.
The
group.
Davao.
But I think the family, the Lagdameo, or Congressman Antonio Lagdameo is the grandson of Antonio Florendo, the so-called Banana King. And the grandfather of this congressman of SAP Lagdameo, we should point out, is an old friend, and I think back then it would be called crony of then President Ferdinand Marcos Sr.
I think the father was also appointed ambassador to UN.
Right. The father of this one right now,
Yeah.
or before
No, this one.
of this one. Yes.
Yung former BFF si Bong Daza ay nagkaroon pa ng a touching moment during the oath taking na nilagyan siya ng parang place for
He had a seat reserved for him with his
Yes,
face there,
yes.
with his picture there, because they were really close. I think they were childhood friends, and Bongbong Marcos walked the daughter
Yes.
down the alley in marriage. This is Isabel Daza. We all know that Bong Daza was married to the first Miss Universe from the Philippines, Gloria Diaz. So that's Congressman Anton Lagdameo Jr.
Okay.
Very influential, very close to the president. They go a long way back.
So we have the little president, BFF, First Lady, of course. Hindi pwedeng mawala. Ayan.
I think yun ang next.
Okay. Next natin, Attorney Liza Araneta Marcos. All right.
Okay. Anyway, okay, so the next is the First Lady, Lisa Araneta Marcos. She is being credited with the successful BBM campaign in 2022. Okay, we have to remember that she is a lawyer and she has her own law office. Okay, even, alam mo, Cheryl, matatanda mo nung na-interview mo si BBM, nung tumatakbo during the campaign, he himself said so na, yung asawa ko, she was the one who organized all of this. And her talent, she has the talent for choosing and putting people in the right place. So that's the kind of First Lady we have. And we imagine that even though she wouldn't want to get appointed in government, that she would continue to play a big role.
Big
She
role.
will have the influence. She will have the ears of the president.
Siya yung search committee.
Kasama.
Sama.
Kasama siya.
And you could say
Betting
that she might potentially be the most powerful First Lady we've seen since maybe the mother-in-law.
That's a very good point.
But
Kasi may
maybe
pagka-gatekeeper siya.
powerful maybe in a different way. Okay, in a different way, not in the same way that her former First Lady Imelda Marcos was powerful. Maybe
Embedded
not
na.
in the same way she exercised her power, but she will be very powerful.
Embedded na, at least yung group na hawak ni First Lady nung kampanya, yung core na yun, embedded na sa government. So at least meron siyang reach doon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Siyempre, hindi natin ikakaila. The big sister.
Yes.
Kasama yan
Of
sa
course.
nakapaligid. Pero hindi natin siya masyadong naramdaman during the campaign. Pinabayaan. Nakita natin na siguro isa sa naging advantage nun ay isa ang kumukumpas. May direksyon yung naging kampanya. Pero nandyan pa rin si ate.
Okay, pasok na natin, Cheryl.
Aha.
Okay, the next one. Okay, is the super ate ng Pangulo. SAP din siya, SAP din siya. Pero super ate ng Pangulo. And this is Senator Amy Marcos. We all know her to be the ate of the president. Okay? So you mentioned a while ago, Cheryl, na parang hindi natin siya masyadong naramdaman ng kampanya. For the record, she was not present at the kick-off campaign at the Philippine Arena. Wala siya doon. There was only a video of her. In the meeting that advance, the final campaign rally, hindi rin natin siya nakita in public on the stage. So, but she has made her views very known. She has made pronouncements such as before all these appointments happened, she was saying sana that the president will appoint somebody from the opposition. I think she went on the record on that. Of course, we have yet to see that happening. She has also expressed her disappointment at the vetoing of that Bulacan Airport bill, na pet bill niya. So medyo na-disappoint din siya doon. So we're seeing an influence that is not there yet, but of course, being the big sister of the president, she will have her voice.
And being the big sister, sinabi niya kanina na ang gusto niya, inaasahan niya sa Sona ni PBBM ay sana daw magalit. Ayan, magalit si PBBM dito sa mga corrupt officials. Pero hindi inamin din niya na hindi personality yon, hindi personalidad ni Pangulong Bongbong. Yes, Joey?
I think so. Hindi, I think tama yung observation na parang labas siya sa official campaign team nung nakalipas na eleksyon. Pero feeling ko meron siyang kinater na ibang merkado or pulso na tinapa nung nakaraang halalan or kampanya. Kasi napaka-active niya sa social media.
Right. Meron siyang Lenlen videos.
May mga Lenlen videos siya. Ngayon ko nga lang, dahil busy tayo nung kampanya, Cheryl and the editors, ngayon ko lang binalikan lahat nung Amy Marcos vlogs during the campaign. Alam mo na may ambag.
May ambag.
May ambag.
Well, let's not forget that, di ba she's being credited with the
Yes.
one who brokered the Marcos,
Sara.
BBM, and Sara Duterte partnership, di ba? So kung siya nga yung nag-broker nun, then she does play a big role in it.
Yan ang pinakamalaking ambag.
Oh, yes.
Because tama, it was the right bet. Yeah.
It was the right bet. We all know that combination more or less close,
Yeah. Wala.
ended the race.
Pinakita natin sa graphics natin yan nung campaign natin na inano natin na nung bumaba si Sara doon sa nag-slide to VP, tumaas na ng tumaas.
Tumalon yung
Nakinabang talaga.
Yeah.
Nakinabang. Doon talaga napuntahan. Yes.
Oo, napunta. Ang nakinabang ay si PBBM. Okay, nakilala natin yung mga nakapaligid kay Pangulong BBM. Gaano kahalaga ang magiging role nito?
Meron pa ata tayong
Kay
isa,
PBBM,
Cheryl.
meron pa ba tayong isa?
Oo, may isa pa.
One more.
Meron
Okay,
pang
one
isa.
more.
Ito
Alright.
gusto ko malaman kung anong ambag.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, and finally, no, of course, this is by no means the only people who have the president's ears who will be influential, but we're giving you at least 5 names, no, and the last name is Sabine Aboitiz. Okay, so it's beyond business. He is the chairman of the Private Sector Advisory Council, the Presidential Business Advisory Council. Ano, Cheryl, everybody, no, isang bagong grupo to na binuo na wala nung mga nakarang administrasyon, pero in this administration, there is a Private Sector Advisory Council. Okay.
Masasabi ba natin?
I guess, all I know is that BBM and Mr. Aboitiz are personal friends. But beyond that, I think maybe Regina has something to weigh on this, the role of Aboitiz in this.
I just, as far as the relationship goes, I just wanted to point out na for the most part, si Aboitiz, si Sabine Aboitiz, and also the family had stayed behind the scenes.
Right.
So it was one of those things na the inner circle would know na how close they are, pero publicly hindi sila masyadong visible until election night. Remember there was that photo that went
victory
viral.
party.
Tapos nandun si Sabine Aboitiz sa victory party, yung katabi ni Pangulong Marcos. Kasama din sila yung the Mega World family, the Tan family. So yun na, dun na lumabas talaga yung connections niya with the private sector, which run very, very deep.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying.
Since sabi mo, Sir Patrick, ay nabuo, wala ito sa mga nakalipas na administrasyon, yung private sector group,
Advisory Council.
advisory council. Now, dun sa klase ng sitwasyon mayroon tayo sa bansa. Well, itong nakalipas na pandemic, nakita natin kung gaano nakatulong din ang private sector para matulungan ang pamahalaan kung paano natin haharapin yung pandemic. Now, it's a different situation. We're on the recovery period. Hindi madali para sa nagmanang administrasyon ngayon na si Marcos administration. So, paano makakatulong ang private sector this time? Anong magiging role, you think, ng private sector this time? Dito sa administration na to.
First, Cheryl, maybe it's useful to look into what businesses or what industries Mr. Aboitiz is in. I think he's in power generation. Okay, he is also, I think, in construction, and they are into banking. I think Union Bank is part of their portfolio. So these are big industries, these are big sectors that they're into. They're a major player in the economy. So I think, alam mo naman, di ba, Regina, you know this, the business community has been very, very instrumental and helpful in
Pandemic.
not just in the pandemic, even this last how many decades, right? Malaki ang papel na binigay talaga sa private sector para sa buhay ng ating ekonomiya.
And then the key difference there, I guess, is if you have the buy-in of the private sector, that's going to be huge. Malaki yun because unlike with former President Duterte, when he first came to power, parang the private sectors nagulat sila, parang they don't know how to deal with him, hindi nila kilala, he was an outsider. But now that we have somebody whom they like, then it should be easier to see projects through.
Okay. At this point, bago natin ituloy po mga kapatid yung ating discussion, makikita po natin sa ating screen ang ayan na po, naglalakad na si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Okay, I think we're gonna...
Just buto na lang natin.
Ibuto na natin. Ayan na po ang ating Pangulo. Ang oras natin ay 3:34
Right on time.
ng hapon.
Kasama niya.
Masasabi natin ay ito yung expected na pagdating ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos dyan po sa Batasang Pambansa at sakay ng isang helicopter. And at this point, he was already greeted by the Chief of Staff of Armed Forces of the Philippines AFP Chief of Staff General Andres Centino. And ayan po, dumaan na si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos sa ating honor guard. At dito ay sasalubungin siya at the end of the honor guards ay si Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri and Speaker of the House, Representative Martin Romualdez.
Cheryl, kasama na sa helicopter si Vic Rodriguez, ha?
Unang bumaba sa helicopter si E.S. Rodriguez.
Executive Secretary.
Tapos kasama rin si H.R. Mercado.
Oo. Si HR nga pala, no? Kaya nabanggit ni Joby si HR
Konting
Mercado.
trivia.
Dati nating kasamahan yan dito sa TV5. She was the executive assistant of Ma'am
Luchi.
Our Hepe.
Luchi
Cruz Valdez. Siguro maganda na ibuton natin kung ano yung nangyayari
Pakita lang
ngayon.
natin. Tuloy-tuloy lang.
At this point, after pong sinalubong ni Senate President Zubiri and House Speaker Romualdez, si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, ay dadalhin muna siya sa isang holding area, di ba? Sa holding room, isang holding room. Ayan, para hintayin yung alas 4. Dahil laging ganoon. Every 4th Monday of July at 4 p.m., nagsasagawa ng Sona ang ating Pangulo. At ito po, narito na sa holding room si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos.
Ang importance ng paglalagay o pagpunta muna sa isang holding area ay para makausap muna yung House leaders, Cheryl.
May hindi malinaw yung aking sa akin monitor, but kasama ang First Lady.
The sister is there, Senator Amy.
Okay.
Senator Amy is the one wearing the parang gray, no? Or powder gray or powder blue na terno. And then, of course,
President Mig Zubiri.
and si Attorney Liza, First Lady, Attorney Liza Araneta Marcos. At naroon din si Congressman Sandro
Okay.
Marcos.
So next to Congressman Sandro Marcos is Congresswoman
Camille Villar.
Camille Villar. And then also beside her is, I think it's Mayor. It looks like Mayor. I'm not so sure if it was Mayor, but right now what we're seeing Congressman Joel Villanueva, the Senate Majority Leader, also
I think
right
that's
beside the Senate President Miguel
Senator
Zubiri.
Jinggoy Estrada is also there. Ayan, sa unang upuan. Sino ang Okay, Jovi, ikaw nakailang Sona ka na rin. Pero paano pinipili kung sino ang dapat nakasama sa holding area? Meron ba yon?
SOP, of course, the Senate President and House Speaker
and the First Lady.
Tapos kung sino yung dalawang leader na yon, magpipick sila ng mga pwede nilang makasama sa loob. There was a time na ang pinili puro babae dapat. May mga ganun, may mga team silang iniisip dyan.
Okay, so doon nakita natin sa bahagi ng Senado, ang kasama ni Senate President Mig Zubiri ay si Senator Joel Villanueva, Senator Francis Tolentino,
And,
Senator Jinggoy Estrada,
And Senator Amy.
and Senator Amy Marcos. Okay, and then sa bahagi ng Congress, House Speaker Martin Romualdez,
Of course,
ang
yung
kasama niya
congressman na anak.
Congressman Sandro,
Yeah.
and then I think 2 or 3 Congresswoman Camille Villar, and 2 others na hindi natin medyo nakita, no? So, automatic yan, mag-uusap-usap sila. May particular ba pinag-uusapan sa loob or kwento-kwentuhan lang habang naghihintay ng alas 4 ng hapon?
Chika lang yan.
Okay. Habang hinihintay natin ang alas 4, mga kapatid, dahil yan po, dyan natin naasahan na lalabas si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos mula sa holding area para pumasok sa session hall. Punta naman tayo muna sa iyo, Jovi.
Kunin natin yung opportunity na habang pinapakita ang ilan po sa mga lawmakers natin na pumuposisyon na at umuupo na sa kanilang mga nakatakdang upuan para sa araw na ito. Ay yung nangyari kanina sa opening, Cheryl, at ang mga kasama nating editors, yung naging desisyon nga. Alam natin na sa mababang kapulungan ay bumoto na sila kung sino yung House
Yun na si
Speaker. Ano.
VP Sara.
Tapos, well,
Is that Vice President
that's
Sara
Vice President Sara
Ayun.
Duterte, Cheryl.
She's wearing a traditional bogobo, if I'm not mistaken,
Headdress.
dress.
Headdress, yeah.
Si Robin Padilla ata naka-Muslim dress din.
So anyway, as I was saying, si House Speaker Martin Romualdez yung naboto na bilang House Speaker nga, at ang wala pa tayong desisyon ngayon dahil bukas pa 'tong mangyayari or this week at least ay kung sino ang magiging minority leader. Okay. So, may mga bulong-bulungan dahil ngayon ano masasabi natin na kung dati na-enjoy ni President Duterte yung supermajority, parang mas kumonte ang masasabing members ng minority.
So ngayon parang super majority
I think
talaga.
so. Pwede natin sabihin ganun unless meron silang bago itatawag doon starting tomorrow. So,
Kasi just like in Senate, dadalawa sila na minority, di ba? So sa Congress, kukunti rin, Jovi.
eto na nga. Kukonti lang dahil yung Makabayan Block ay 3. Tapos yung iba ay nag-minority. Pero masasabing nakaalyado naman sa administrasyon.
So Jovi, do we remember if any other past administration has enjoyed this much advantage in numbers?
Post-EDSA, mukhang ito na. Post-EDSA mukhang ito yung pinakamarami. Pinakakonting matatawag na nasa minority.
Maski si Pangulong Duterte very popular with 70-90%.
Yeah.
Hindi niya nakuha yung kanyang majority sa Congress.
Hindi. At saka mas marami kasing Makabayan Block noon.
So in a
ngayon,
way,
konti.
pag-uusapan natin na magiging legislative agenda na ina-expect natin na makarinig natin mula sa ating Pangulo, ay mas mabilis na makakapagtrabaho.
Dapat, di ba? Oo.
Okay, since hinihintay natin yung oras, pag-usapan natin before natin pakinggan yung darating na first Sona, ano ang inaasahan? Iba ang sitwasyon natin ngayon, mas maraming, kanina I've mentioned that mas maraming hamon para dito sa Marcos administration considering kung nasaan ang yung true state of our country. And kung titingnan natin yung mga gustong marinig ng mga kababayan natin base sa Pulse Asia Survey, ay talagang, Regina, sentro ay yung inflation, yung ating ekonomiya. Where are we?
Of course, Cheryl, kasi ramdam natin lahat yan, right? That's coming after several weeks of continued oil price hikes. Lahat nila, everything from chicken to rice to lahat ng basic na bilihin, nagtaas na, right? So, number 1 talaga on the Pulse Asia survey, as well as when we talk to the businessmen, number 1, they want to hear itong inflation. Tamang-tama, si Pangulong Marcos, even on the campaign trail, nagsabi na siya that his priority is going to be food sovereignty, food self-sufficiency. So yun yung gusto natin marinig today, which is ano ang plano to get there. Because we know, for example, that he's mentioned he wanted to build more farm-to-market roads, pero matagal pa yun. That's like a 5, 6, 10-year kind of a plan. In the meantime, ang taas na ng presyo ng bilihin, nagsabay pa na humihina yung peso. So kakasabi lang ng PSA, ng Statistics Agency, na yung 1 peso in 2018, mga worth about sa 87 cents na lang ngayon. So nagkasabay pa yung dalawang problem. So again, number 1, we want to hear ano yung immediate plans to ease inflation, and number 2, ano yung I guess medyo more midterm plans for food production. Kasi sabi niya din na ayaw niya ng puro importation lang.
Yes, okay. So kakayanin ba? Dahil ito nga ang gustong marinig. Naalala ko, campaign, ang unang sumulpot, di ba? Uy, 20 pesos na lang ang magiging presyo ng bigas kada kilo.
Yes, yung campaign promise.
And sabi nga niya, kinlaro niya yun, aspiration lang niya yun. Aspiration lang. Pero sinabi na
Mahirap
hindi
Kasi ang
mangyayari.
production cost ng rice mataas, Kailangan mo ng fertilizer, kailangan mo ng kung ano pa, mga post-harvest facilities na kulang ang ating bansa. Ngayon, dahil sa gera sa Ukraine, nagkakahirapan ng supply ng fertilizer. So dapat, malaking subsidiya na galing sa ating gobyerno para matulungan ang ating mga farmers na magtanim at lumago ang kanilang produksyon.
So we can expect this sa Sona ng Pangulo.
Maybe he will ask Congress to give more subsidies
Titingnan
Okay.
Alright. Okay. Mga kapatid, ipagpapatuloy po natin itong ating usapan at ang pagtutok natin dito po sa special coverage ng One News at ng One PH ang Sona 2022. All sides, all the time. Nagbabalik ang special coverage ng One News at 1PH sa Sona 2022. Samantala, tignan naman natin ngayon ang pulso ng netizens sa ating Interactive Data Center kasama si Jess De Los Santos. Jess, ano ba ang trending ngayon?
Okay, Cheryl, narito ang latest sa ating social media listening tool na Sprinkler. Silipin natin ang issues na pinag-uusapan online sa huling 7 araw. Makikita natin sa chart na ito, no, yung 10 at least, no, 10 sa mga pangunahing issue na pinag-uusapan sa bansa. Kitang-kita dyan, angat na angat. Historical revisionism over the past 7 days. Nag-increase ang interaction tungkol sa topic na yan by almost 154%. Makikita natin ang interaction is already at 617,000. Siyempre, nangyari o naging mainit ang usapin tungkol sa kasaysayan. Patungo na rin doon sa pag-release ng pelikulang Made in Malacanang, kung saan nagkaroon ng ilang mga komento rin yung mga artista nito tungkol sa paksa ng kasaysayan. Kaya makikita natin, medyo naging hot topic yan, especially nitoong weekend. Also, makikita natin face-to-face classes. Medyo milya-milya yung ibinaba ng interaction tungkol sa face-to-face classes. Makita natin, it's down by 24%. Ang interaction is at 72,000. NTF-LCAC, ang revamping or usapin tungkol sa pag-institutionalize dito sa NTF-LCAC is at 30,000. Ang interaction, bumaba rin yan over the past 7 days. Samantala, makikita natin, ito medyo lumang usapin na ito, yung tungkol sa mandatory military service. Pero makikita natin, tumaas siya by 100% over the past week. Makikita natin ang interaction is already at 29,000. Also, kanina napag-usapan ninyo yung tungkol sa inflation at pag-manage ng ekonomiya. Naging hot topic din yan over the past 7 days. Nag-increase yan by 18% to 20,000 interaction. Pero ang may pinakamalaking increase over the past week, Cheryl, ito yung usapin tungkol sa transportasyon o sa libreng sakay. Makikita nga natin sa social media, maraming clips, maraming videos and images na nagpapakita ng struggle ng ating mga commuter, lalo na dito sa Metro Manila. That has increased by 250%. Ang interaction ay nasa 15,700 na kumpara noong nagdaang linggo. Ilan pa sa mga usapin nandyan, right sizing of government, charter change, ayuda, divorce bill at mismo yung pangako nga o yung aspiration ni Pangulong Marcos na ibaba ang presyo ng bigas sa 20 piso kada kilo. Medyo mababa yung interaction, nasa 18 lang over the past 7 days. Ngayon, silipin naman natin ang ating word cloud. Narito ang mga salitang iniuugnay kay Pangulong Bongbong Marcos sa nakalipas na 24 oras. Mas malaki ang mga letra, ibig sabihin mas pinag-uusapan. Makikita natin mostly ng mga salita rito ay patungkol lang sa Sona, sa mga detalye tungkol sa ito nga sa kauna-unahang State of the Nation address ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Nandiyan ang hashtag Sona 2022, Marcos Address President Bongbong Pangulo. So, asahan natin na magbabago itong mga salita na ito sa oras na magsalita na ang ating Pangulo. Yan ang latest dito sa ating Interactive Data Center. Balik sa iyo, Cheryl.
Maraming salamat sa iyo, Chester. Samantala, balikan po natin ang ating diskusyon tungkol sa ekonomiya. Dumulog ulit tayo, of course, sa ating business editor na si Regina Lay. Okay, kanina napapag-usapan na natin yung inflation. Since 2018, ngayon ulit tumaas hanggang 6.1%. Kaya bang i-control ito ng ating government, you think?
Well, Cheryl, they're definitely trying. Pero if meron yata tayong chart, tingnan natin yung progreso ng inflation. We started the year at 3.2%, 3.2% thereabouts, and ngayon nasa 6.1% na tayo. And yan yung nagkaroon pa ng konting controversy around that kasi sabi nga ni Pangulong Marcos, diba, na parang when he was first asked about it, sabi niya, parang I don't believe those numbers, yung na-suggest niya. Of course, the point is that pataas na tayo ng yung inflation numbers, yung presyo ng basic na bilihin. And the problem is, tama si Pangulong Marcos during that press conference, he pointed out na most of it is imported, meaning hindi natin kasalanan. Meaning it's not because we did anything, we mismanaged the economy or anything. It's because of oil prices, of course, because gera nga sa Ukraine, it's still continuing, we don't know when it's gonna end. And for example, when you talk about agriculture, halos lahat ng fertilizers natin, ini-import natin. That's according to Agri-Secretary William Dar or former Agricultural Secretary William Dar. So about more than 90% ini-import. So of course, mahina yung peso, tapos may gera pa, may backlog sa shipping. So of course, all of that magkakapatong-patong.
I have a question for Regina. Anyway, we mentioned a while ago subsidy for agriculture, no? Yung subsidiya ng gobyerno for agriculture. Kasi yun ang mahalaga para ma-achieve yung food security. Kailangan tulungan, bigyan ng pang-subsidiya ang mga magsasaka, pambili ng fertilizer, etc. Ang tanong, Regina, do we have money
Yes,
for that?
exactly.
Kasi yun ata hindi
I
naintindihan.
wish I had money.
Do we have?
It's gonna cost the government.
It's gonna cost us what it comes down to. So, again, si outgoing Secretary William Dar has already said, kung gusto niyo na ibaba yung presyo ng bigas to 20 pesos per kilo, you need 245 billion pesos in subsidies.
Yes.
So,
Pwede,
the question,
pwede. Pero who will pay?
Exactly.
Ikakat namin kayo ni Cheryl, ha? Alam namin, very interesting to. Pero ngayon ko lang nakita na talagang nag-tour muna ng House ang isang presidente, ano, before pumunta doon sa main gallery. Nakaposisyon na lahat. Cheryl, yung mga kongresista, pati yung mga special guests, at saka mga senador. Pero nakita mo, usually diretso yan, di ba? Lalakad.
We have around 4-5 minutes at sinadya niya sigurong lumabas ng mas maaga mula sa holding room papunta sa session hall. Pero that presentation, yun, bago yun. Isa yun sa mga bagong mukha ng batasang pambansa, mga kapatid. At talagang iba rin ang feel ngayon habang naglalakad. At nag-iisa siya. Dati, di ba, talagang parang isang grupo yan na may kasama na naglalakad
Alam mo,
ang Pangulo.
Cheryl, tagal ko na-assign dyan.
Yes.
Ang liwanag tignan ng batasan ngayon.
Tsaka puti-puti.
Kahit yung labas ng batasan. Yeah.
Puti-puti, oh.
At saka, we siguro should mention that may director to na magaling.
Maganda yung pag-direction
Si
niya.
Direk Paul Soriano.
po, yan,
Ayan, papasok na po ang ating Pangulo sa session hall ng Batasang Pambansa.
Ayan.
Oh, yan, meron pang over the shoulder. Maganda yung cinematography.
Well planned. Well planned.
Maganda yung kuha niya, no?
He has a moment, so he's going to ascend that ramp alone. There's nobody behind him or beside him. It's that moment, it's that shot siguro.
This shot is very nice.
At hindi natin to nakita sa mga nakalipas na Sona. Usually, pag lumabas ang Pangulo sa labas ng holding area, grupo sila, parang nagkakagulo na. Lakad lang. Simpleng lakad to. Ito, sabi mo nga, Regina, may moment. May sarili siyang moment.
Kasi napansin ko, bakit parang nauna yung mga ibang dapat kasama niya sa
nakaupo na sa session hall ang First Lady at yung mga senador na nakasama kanina sa holding area.
Kakaiba talaga yung
Congresswoman
directing
Janet
this time.
Garin. Okay.
I don't know if you remember yung isang Sona during the time President Duterte, matagal yung intay nila sa waiting room, sa holding room. Kasi nga doon sa nagkaroon ng
speakership row.
Nagpapalit ng speakership.
Matagal yung nakita-kita natin, inip na yung presidente. Hindi makalabas dahil hindi niya alam kung sino yung magiging House Speaker.
Hanggat hindi nare-resolba, hindi ako papasok sa
2018, I think.
2018.
Ayan po ang si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos nakikipagkamay sa
And they're playing,
niya.
one of the anthems from the Marcos administration. Anong kanta to?
Pilipinas Kong Mahal.
Pilipinas Kong Mahal, yes.
Yan. Aakyat na po ang Pangulong Bongbong Marcos sa rostrum.
So on time si Pangulong
On
Marcos.
the dot. Right on
We
the dot.
expected.
2 minutes to go. Katulad ng inauguration na akala natin mabibitin sila sa oras pero eksaktong alas 12 nakapagpanumpa si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos.
Okay.
On the part of the Senate, the joint session is called to order. On the part of the House of Representatives, The joint session is called to order. Please rise for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, to be led by the Samiwang Singers of Ilocos Norte.
Bayang magiliw, peros ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupi, di ka pasisihin, sa dagat at bundok, sa siwayan, sa langit mamahaw, may dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tamo ay nanagniningning, ang bituin at araw niyang kailan pang may di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw na ating pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please remain standing for the nation's prayer.
Aming manlilikha, tagapagbigay buhay at liwanag ng sangkatauhan. Salamat po sa iyong pagtangkilig at paggabay sa bansang Pilipinas. Salamat po sa kalayaang magtipon tulad ngayon ayon sa talaga ng aming saligang batas.
Salamat po na kami dahil sa kabayanihan, pagsisikap at sakripisyo ng aming mga ninuno at mga bayani ay nabuo upang maging isang bansa at isang malayang demokratikong republika. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.
Pagpalain niyo po ang aming pagtitipon ngayon upang aming dinggin, liwanagan at suriin ang kalagayan ng bayan, ang state of the nation. At upang italaga sa inyong gabay at tangkilik ang mga magiging hakbangin ng pamahalaan sa pangunguna ng aming Pangulo, Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr.
Biyayaan niyo po kami, mga mamamayan at mga namumuno, ng patuloy at tumitibay na pagkakaisa, pagtutulungan at pagmamahalan bilang pagsunod sa inyong mabuti at magandang kalooban.
Kasihan niyo po ang aming Pangulo at ang pangkat ng kanyang mga tagapangasiwa, ang aming mga mambabatas, ang aming mga hukom, at ang mga tagapagpairal ng katarungan, ng dalisay at ibayong kaliwanagan, karunungan, katuwiran, at katapatan sa kanilang banal na tungkulin.
Patuloy niyo po kaming turuan
at atahayin kaming lahat na mga mamamayan at mga pinuno tungo sa dakilang pagkakaisa na magbubunga ng ibayong kapayapaan, kaayusan, kaunlaran, kasaganaan, at kasiyahan ng lipunang Pilipino.
Magpatuloy po tayo sa personal na panalangin. Mangyaring ang bawat isa ay tahimik na manawagan sa may kapal.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of the Congress of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., President of the Republic of the Philippines.
Vice President Sara Zimmerman Duterte, former Presidents Joseph Ejercito Estrada, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, and Rodrigo Roa Duterte, Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri, and the honorable members of the Senate, House Speaker Ferdinand Martin Romualdez, and the honorable members of the House of Representatives, Chief Justice Alexander Gesmundo, and the honorable justices of the Supreme Court, the Apostolic Nuncio, Most Reverend Charles John Brown, and the esteemed members of the Diplomatic Corps, the honorable members of the Cabinet, our First Lady, Luis Araneta Marcos, and our children, distinguished guests, ang mga minamahal kong mga kababayan, ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. I come before you today to address you as it is my duty as President of the Republic. We live in difficult times, brought about by some forces of our own making, but certainly also by forces that are beyond our control. But we have, and we will continue to find solutions, and these are some of them. In terms of the economy, we will implement a sound fiscal management. Tax administration reforms will be in place to increase revenue collection. Expenditure priorities will be realigned and spending efficiency will be improved to immediately address the economic scarring arising from the effects of COVID-19 and also to prepare for future shocks. Productivity-enhancing investments will be promoted. Our country must become an investment destination, capitalizing on the corporate recovery and tax incentives for enterprises with the CREATE law and the economic liberalization laws such as the Public Service Act and the Foreign Investments Act. Ecozones will be fully supported to bring in strategic industries such as those engaged in high-tech manufacturing, health and medical care, and all emerging technologies. This is also seen to facilitate economic growth outside of Metro Manila. Our tax system will be adjusted in order to catch up with the rapid developments of the digital economy, including the imposition of value-added tax on digital service providers. The initial revenue impact will be around 11.7 billion pesos in 2023 alone. Tax compliance procedures will be simplified to promote ease of paying taxes. We will pursue measures to determine possible undervaluation and/or trade misinvoicing of imported goods. Through information and communications technology, the Bureau of Customs will promote streamlined processes. Disbursements for 2022 to 2023 will be maintained at above 20% of gross domestic product, or 4.955 trillion pesos and 5.086 trillion pesos respectively, to ensure continuous implementation of priority programs. Disbursement will further increase over the medium term from 5.402 trillion pesos, or 20.7% of our GDP in 2024, to 7.712 trillion pesos, or 20.6% of GDP in 2028. The medium-term fiscal strategy of this administration seeks to attain short-term macro-fiscal stability while remaining supportive of the country's economic recovery and to promote medium-term fiscal sustainability. Furthermore, and more importantly, fiscal policy aims to bring together the national government's resources so that these are mobilized and utilized in order to gain the maximum benefit and the high multiplier effects for our economy. Measurable medium-term macroeconomic and fiscal objectives include the following headline numbers. These are based on forecasts that are consistent with the guiding principles of coherence of strategies, policy discipline, and fiscal sustainability. 6.5 to 7.5% real gross domestic product growth in 2022. 6.5 to 8% real GDP growth annually between 2023 and 2028. 9% or single-digit poverty rate by 2028. 3% national government deficit to GDP ratio by 2028. Less than 60% national government debt to GDP ratio by 2025. At least $4,256 income per capita and the attainment of upper middle income status by 2024. The aforementioned headline goals summarize the objectives of this medium-term fiscal strategy being submitted to Congress for its adoption and concurrence to the concurrent resolution by the Senate and House of Representatives. Once adopted, the MTFF will become an anchor for the annual spending and financing plan of the national government and Congress when preparing the annual budget and undertaking related appropriation activities. It is therefore a forward-looking document that extends beyond the traditional 3-year horizon to reach 6 years, coinciding with the 6-year coverage of the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. The MTFF also promotes transparency and credible commitment to pursue the indicated social macroeconomic goals that optimize the government budget. Medium-term growth targets and the assumptions regarding key macroeconomic variables underpin the medium-term fiscal plan. The recent past and the COVID-19 pandemic has beset the macroeconomic environment with challenges and a series of external shocks. Inflation has accelerated in recent months due largely to significant increases in international prices of oil and other key commodities. Still, the economic growth momentum remains firm, as demonstrated by the strong 2022 first quarter GDP growth at 8.3%. However, the recovery process from the impact of the pandemic is still ongoing, amid elevated uncertainty in the international economic environment. Revisions in the macroeconomic assumptions incorporate these challenges and most recent economic developments, leading to upward adjustments in the following: inflation rate for 2022 to 2023, foreign exchange rate for 2023 to 2025, and goods and services imports growth for 2022. The economy is expected to grow by 6.5 to 7.5% this year as we continue to reopen the economy while considering the recent external developments. In the first quarter alone, GDP saw an increase in household consumption and private investments, along with a robust manufacturing industry, high vaccination rate, improved healthcare capacity, and an upward trend in tourism and employment. This is expected to continue for the rest of the year. The strong economic growth is projected to be sustained and expanded further to 6.5 to 8% from 2023 until 2028. The average inflation for 2022 is projected to range from 4.5 to 5.5%, following the uptick in fuel and food prices as a result of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict and the disrupted supply chains. It is slightly adjusted to 2.5 to 4.5% in 2023 and is seen to return to the target range of 2.0 to 4.0% by 2024 until 2028. Dubai crude oil price is expected to settle at 90 to 110 US dollars per barrel in 2022, 80 to 100 US dollars per barrel in 2023, and 70 to 90 US dollars per barrel from 2024 onwards, as oil supply is expected to catch up and stabilize over the medium term. The Philippine peso is projected to average between 51 to 53 pesos per US dollar in 2022 and 51 to 55 pesos per US dollar from 2023 onwards due to aggressive monetary policy tightening by the US Federal Reserve, market aversion amid the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and again, increased global oil prices. Lastly, exports of goods are expected to grow by 7% in 2022 and 6% from 2023 to 2028. On the other hand, imports of goods are projected to grow by 18% in 2022, 6% in 2023, and 8% from 2024 to 2028. I have instructed the NEDA to coordinate with other agencies and work on the Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 28 and to submit to me the complete blueprint and progress of its implementation not later than year-end. One of the main drivers of our push for growth and employment will be in the agricultural sector. With regard to food supply, we are confronted by a two-pronged problem: that which will hit us in the short term and that which will hit us in the long term. Tayo ay nahaharap sa mga problemang kagyat nating mararamdaman at mga hamong pangmatagalan. Ang mga suliraning agarang mararamdaman ng ating mga kababayan ay ang posibilidad ng tuloy-tuloy na pagsipa ng presyo ng pagkain at kakulangan sa supply ng ating pagkain. Upang masuportahan ang mabimili para mapanatili ang kanilang purchasing power o kapangyarihan sa pagbili, isinapinal ng Department of Agriculture ang planong taasan ang produksyon sa susunod na panahon ng pagtanim o planting season sa pamamagitan ng tulong pinansyal at teknikal. Magbibigay tayo ng pautang habang mas ilalapit natin sa sektor ng agrikultura ang hindi gaanong mahal na farm inputs na bibilhin na ng bulto ng gobyerno. Kabilang dito ang abono, pestisidyo, mga punla, feeds, fuel subsidy at ayuda para sa mga karapat-dapat na benepisyaryo. Para sa pangmatagalang solusyon, itataas natin ang produksyon ng mga kalakal at produktong pang-agrikultura. At para magawa ito, pagtitibayin natin ang tinatawag na value chain na nagsisimula sa mga magsasaka hanggang sa mga namimili. May mga bahagi ng value chain na sa ngayon ay kanya-kanya ang operasyon. Pagtibayin natin ang koordinasyon ng iba't ibang bahagi nito. Ang pagsasaliksik para sa mga makabagong paraan at ng pagtatanim at pag-aalaga ng hayop ay masusing gagabayan ng Department of Agriculture. Ang produksyon ng farm inputs o mga kakailanganin ng mga magsasaka sa pagpapalago ng kanilang sakahan ay ating iaayon sa mga hamong dala ng climate change at global warming. Mahigpit na pagsusuri ang gagawin ng ating mga eksperto tungo dito. Ang mga pautang at financial assistance sa mga magbubukid at mangingisda ay magiging institusyon at patakaran ng aking administrasyon. Ipapaprioridad natin ang modernisasyon ng mga sakahan sa pamamagitan ng mga makabagong teknolohiya para sa ating mga magsasaka. Atin palalawakin ang mga palaisdaan, babuyan at manukan. Lahat ng ito gagamitan ng siyensya para tumaas ang produksyong agrikultural. Maging ang post-production at processing ay susuportahan ng pamahalaan. Gagawa tayo ng network, national network ng farm-to-market road upang mas mabilis na mailakbay ng mga magsasaka ang kanilang mga produkto sa mga pamilihan. At gagawa tayo ng mga paraan upang maramdaman ng mga mamimili ang pagluluwag ng presyo ng mga produktong pagkain sa kayang halaga, gaya ng muling pagbubuhay ng mga Kadiwa Center. Hindi ito magagawa sa isang araw. Hindi magagawa sa isang buwan o isang taon lamang. Ngunit, kailangan na natin simulaan ngayon. Ang Agrarian Reform Program ay dapat magpatuloy. Agrarian reform is not only about acquisition, but also about support services and distribution. To assist this, I intend to issue an executive order to impose a one-year moratorium on the payment of land amortization and interest payments. This is included in Republic Act number 11469 or the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. A moratorium will give the farmers the ability to channel the resources in developing their farms, maximizing their capacity to produce and propel the growth of our economy. Civil society organizations also support this because it will unburden the farmers of their dues and be able to focus on improving farm productivity. Congress must also pass a law that will emancipate the agrarian reform beneficiaries from the agrarian reform debt burden, thereby amending Section 26 of Republic Act 6657. In this law, the loans of agrarian reform beneficiaries with unpaid amortization and interest shall be condoned. Layunin ng batas na ito ay burahin ang hindi mabayarang utang ng ating mga magsasaka na benepisyaryo ng agrarian reform. Agrarian reform beneficiaries who are still to receive their awarded land under the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program shall receive it without any obligation to pay any amortization. The condonation of the existing agrarian reform loan will cover the amount of 58.125 billion pesos, benefiting 654,000 agrarian reform beneficiaries and involving a total of 1.18 million hectares of awarded lands. Executive Order number 75, Series 2019, requires that all government agencies, bureaus, departments, and instrumentalities to turn over agricultural lands to qualified agrarian reform beneficiaries. At present, we have a total of 52,000 hectares of unused agricultural lands of the government, which shall now be used for distribution to the following sectors in accordance with Section 40 of the Republic Act number 6657 as amended. Thus, landless war veterans, landless surviving spouse and orphans of war veterans, landless retirees of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. Agricultural lands acquired under this program will be given to graduates of college degrees in agriculture who are landless. The call of the times is for the infusion of fresh and new blood in the agricultural sector. We need a new breed of farmers equipped with modern agricultural technology able to engage in sustained scientific farming that will not only increase farm yields, but also resilience in the face of climate change. They say that each brand has a story. As for the Filipino brand, ours is deeply rooted in our rich cultural heritage, and the tourism sector plays an invaluable role in the promotion of the Filipino brand. Tourism is not only an important economic development tool, but the abundance of opportunities that the sector creates in terms of regular employment and even job creation at the grassroots level is undeniable. To boost our tourism industry, we will first and foremost make basic developments, such as road improvements for easier access to tourism spots. We will also upgrade our airports and create more international airports to help decongest the bottleneck in the Manila airport. We will also make it more convenient for travelers to go around the country, even to remote areas, to help promote undiscovered tourist spots. This program will be led by the Department of Tourism together with the Department of Public Works and Highways. To foster the Filipino brand is to spark our sense of pride and reaffirm our strong sense of identity. It is time to welcome the rest of the world with an enhanced Filipino brand that is unique, attractive, and creative. The creativity of the Filipino is truly world-class. We excel in arts and culture, new media, live events, avenues which generate primary and downstream jobs for our creative and talented countrymen. Unfortunately, ang mga hanap buhay na ito ang unang pinadapa ng pandemya at ang pinakahuli namang makabalik sa normal. The creative industry likewise faces many challenges, including workplace conditions, working hours, intellectual property rights, and the welfare of our beloved freelancers who were left vulnerable during the height of the pandemic. We require an institutionalized creative industry that will advance the interest of its stakeholders. Sila na nagbibigay ng kaluluwa at pagkakilala sa ating pagka-Pilipino. Protektahan natin sila. The Department of Social Welfare and Development has a large part to play in all of this. Magpapatuloy ang ating pagkalinga sa ating mga kababayan na lubos na nangangailangan. Hindi po natin sila pababayaan. Mangunguna sa pag-aagapay sa kanila ang Department of Social Welfare and Development. Utos ko sa DSWD ang mabilis na pagtugon sa pangangailangan ng mga biktima ng kalamidad at mga iba't ibang krisis. Ang mga field office nila ay inatasan na maagang maglagak ng family food packs at non-food essentials sa mga LGU, bago pa man manalasa ang anumang kalamidad. Magdadagdag tayo ng mga operation center, warehouse at imbakan ng relief goods, lalo na sa mga malalayong lugar na mahirap marating. Titiyakin natin na maayos ang koordinasyon ng DSWD at Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development nang sa ganon madali ang pagpatupad ng Emergency Shelter Assistance Program para sa mga biktima ng kahit anong kalamidad. Pagtitibayin pa natin ang komprehensibong programang Assistance to Individuals in Crisis Situations o ang ating tinatawag na AICS para maiparating ang tulong sa mas maraming biktima. Hindi natin papahirapan ang mga biktima ng krisis na dudulog sa ahensya. Gagawin nating simple ang proseso ng paghingi at pagparating ng tulong. Dahil hindi naman dapat dinadagdagan pa ang hirap ng nararanasan ng ating mga mamamayan. Upang matiyak na mapupunta sa kwalipikadong mga pamilya ang tulong na pamahalaan sa pamamagitan na 4Ps o Pantawid Pamilya Pilipino Program, titiyakin natin na malilinis ang listahan ng benepisyaryo. Higit na sa 1 milyong pangalan na ang nakapag-graduate na sa listahan. At nagagalak akong mabatid na sila ay nakakatayo na sa kanilang sariling paa. Kaugnay nito ay inutusan ko ang DSWD na pag-ibayuhin pa ang pagrepaso ng listahan upang maitutok ang pamimigay ng sapat na ayuda sa mga lubos na nangangailangang pamilya. Magpapatuloy ang supplemental feeding program para sa mga bata sa child development centers at supervised neighborhood play at lalo pa nating palalawakin sa taong 2023. Hindi rin natin nakakalimutan ang mga solo parents at mga nanay na nahiwalay sa kanilang mga mister dahil sa karahasan. Pagtitibayin natin ang programa sa violence against women and their children. Kabilang na ang counseling para sa mga biktima, katuwang ang ating mga LGU. Tiyakin natin na sapat ang pondo sa halos 70 residential care centers at 7 non-residential care centers para sa vulnerable sectors at persons with disabilities na sumisilong dito. Sa ating sitwasyon ng pangkalusugan, nariyan pa rin ang banta ng COVID-19. Lalo't may mga nadidiskubring bagong variant ng coronavirus. Pero hindi na natin kakayanin ang isa pang lockdown. Wala na tayong gagawing lockdown. Dapat natin balansehin ng maayos ang kalusugan at kapakanan ng ating mga mamamayan sa isang banda at ang ekonomiya naman sa kabilang banda. Nakikipagtulungan ang iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan sa pag-monitor sa mga COVID-19 hospital admission upang makatiyak tayo na may sapat na kapasidad ang ating healthcare system at maiwasan ang pagsipa ng bilang ng nagkakasakit. Patuloy din ang ating vaccine booster rollout para sa ating pangkalahatang depensa. Sa ganitong paraan, kahit pa tumaas muli ang bilang ng mga COVID cases, mananatiling mababa ang bilang ng mga maospital at bilang ng mga namamatay. Sa pamamagitan nito, unti-unti rin tayong masasanay na nariyan ang virus pero hindi na seryoso ang banta sa ating buhay. Iaayon natin ang ating mga health protocols sa kung ano ang ating pangangailangan sa paglipas ng panahon at lalo pang iibayuhin ang kooperasyon kasama ang pribadong sektor upang tumaas pa ang kumpiyansa ng mga mamumunuhan nang sa gayon ay bumalik na tayo sa full capacity, lalo-lalo na ang ating mga negosyo. Pagbubutihan pa natin ang pagpapakalat ng tamang impormasyon ukol sa COVID, kasama ang kahalagahan ng bakuna. Mananatili muna sa ngayon ang alert level system natin. Pinapag-aralan natin ang ibang paraan ng klasifikasyon upang mas babagay sa kasalukuyang sitwasyon, lalong-lalo na sa pagbabago ng COVID. Sa pakikipagtulungan ng Kongreso, itatatag natin ang ating sariling Center for Disease Control and Prevention at ang isang Vaccine Institute. Magtatayo tayo ng dagdag na mga health center at ospital. But beyond the issues that the pandemic has brought, the need for a stronger healthcare system is self-evident. We must bring services, medical services to the people and not wait for them to come to our hospitals and healthcare centers. Napakinabangan natin ng husto ang malalaking specialty hospital gaya ng Heart Center, Lung Center, Children's Hospital at National Kidney and Transplant Institute. Kaya maliwanag na hindi lang dapat dito sa National Capital Region kundi maging sa ibang parte ng bansa. Maliwanag na hindi lamang dapat dito lamang sa National Capital Region kundi maging sa ibang parte ng bansa, kailangan magdagdag ng ganitong uri ng mga pagamutan. Bukod dito, upang mailapit natin ang healthcare system sa taong bayan, nang hindi sila kailangan pumunta sa sentro ng kanilang bayan, lalawigan o region, ay maglalagay tayo ng mga clinic, mga RHU, na pupuntahan ng mga doktor, nurse, midwife, medtech, 1 beses, 2 beses sa isang linggo. Nang sa ganon, magiging mas madali sa may karamdaman na magpapagamot nang hindi na kailangan magbiyahe ng malayo. One of the cornerstones of a strong healthcare system is the provision of competent and efficient medical professionals. We will exert all efforts to improve the welfare of our doctors, our nurses, and other medical frontliners. Dapat din tayong magkaroon ng sapat na supply ng gamot na kinakailangan sa pang-araw-araw ng ating mga mamamayan. Sinimulan ko na ang pakikipag-usap sa mga kumpanya ng gamot dito sa Pilipinas at sa ibang bansa. Hinihikayat natin na buksan nila ang merkado upang bumaba ang presyo ng gamot. Halimbawa, kung mas marami ang mas murang generic o hindi branded na gamot sa merkado, mas bababa rin ang presyo dahil sa kompetisyon. Ang Department of Trade and Industry ay nakikipag-usap sa mga interesadong manufacturer ng generic drugs na papasok sa ating bansa. Inuutusan ko naman ang Philippine Competition Commission na pantay-pantay dapat at walang kartel sa hanay ng mga pharmaceutical companies. Dahil kapag bukas ang merkado, bababa ang presyo ng gamot para mapakinabangan ng ating mga mamamayan. This is one of the hard lessons that we learned when the pandemic struck, and therefore we must act on that shortcoming. In the educational sector, I believe it is time for our children to return to full face-to-face classes once again. The Department of Education, led by our highly able Vice President Sara Duterte, is now preparing for its implementation in the upcoming school year, with utmost consideration for the safety of students as we are still in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We must ensure that our classrooms are safe for teachers, for students, and the entire academic community when they return to face-to-face classes. We continue to encourage everyone to get their booster shots in preparation for the resumption of in-person classes. This is one of the reasons I have directed the Department of Health and the Department of Interior and Local Government to undertake another rollout of booster shots. The condition and availability of schoolrooms for our students must also be addressed again, in coordination with the Department of Public Works and Highways. Though some complications have arisen over the question of repair of school buildings in relation to the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, this will be ironed out. We have been in discussion with local government leaders, governors, and mayors in the last few weeks to determine with the LGUs what is actually practicable, what functions belong to the LGUs, and what belong to the national government. There have also been lengthy discussions on the continuation and viability of the K-12 school system. We are giving this careful review, and all necessary inputs and points of view are now being considered. In the longer term, we are instituting a program of refresher courses and retrainings for our teachers so they can stay abreast of the rapid growth in technology, especially in this post-pandemic world. As for the horror stories that we have heard about the poor quality of educational materials and supplies that are being given to our schools, this must end. Our children must always be equipped with the best that we can provide. Ang edukasyon ay ang tangi nating pamana sa ating mga anak na hindi mawawaldas. Kaya anumang gastusin sa kanilang pag-aaral ay hindi tayo nagtitipid. Hindi rin tayo nagtatapon. And once again, I am not talking about history or what is being taught. I am talking about materials that are necessary for effective teaching in this day and age. Children now need connectivity to the internet. They need devices to use. They need computers, educational tools. So that they might participate fully in the digital community here and abroad. We must do better in the international rankings, especially when it comes to the so-called STEM subjects: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These skills, this knowledge, are necessary for our young people to be able to compete in a highly technological and competitive world. The raw talent is there in our young people. It is up to our educational system to develop and to refine that great pool of talent. Foreign employers have always favored Filipino employees because of our command of the English language. This is an advantage that we must continue to enjoy. The internet has now become the global marketplace, not only for goods, services, but also for ideas, even extending to our own personal interactions. And the language of the internet, for better or for worse, is English. Therefore, the question of our medium of instruction must be continuously re-examined to maintain that advantage that we have established as an English-speaking people. On a related subject, we are entering an age of exponential adoption of technology. It is the fourth industrial revolution. This will be characterized by the infusion of technology into almost every facet of our lives. Breakthrough technologies in the areas of quantum computing, artificial intelligence, nanotechnologies, the Internet of Things, robotics, self-driving electric vehicles, 3D printing, virtual and augmented realities, among others, that will radically transform the way business is done. The scale and the speed at which these innovations are introduced universally into our everyday lives and activities is unprecedented in our recorded history. We cannot stand idly by. The mission of our Department of Information and Communications Technology is to identify and utilize these innovations to improve governance. It has the daunting task now of transforming our government into an agile bureaucracy that is responsive to the needs of the public. Provide good and solid data to ensure informed decision-making, as well as allow secure and seamless access to public services. The voluminous records stored in the government warehouses and archives have to be digitized. Those that are already stored in various inventories of data should be harmonized and shared across departments and agencies. Needless to say, these have to be kept in large data centers that are secure yet accessible. The national ID will play an important part in this digital transformation. For citizens to be able to seamlessly transact with government, their identity must be easily verifiable. We expect to issue 30 million physical IDs and 20 million digital IDs by the end of this year. The target is to accomplish the issuance of about 92 million IDs by the middle of next year. As the world moves into rapid digitalization, the digital divide will become more pronounced. The depth and breadth at which these technologies will be transformative in our lives is fully expected. This will open new opportunities for the creation of wealth, but will also likely create inequalities. Hence, universal connectivity will be a vital component in order to ensure that no citizen is left behind. I have therefore tasked the DICT to deploy digital connectivity across our various islands. This will be done through the implementation of the National Broadband Plan, the Common Tower Program, connecting our geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas via our Broadband ng Masa project. All relevant modes of digital transport should be utilized. These may be through a combination of terrestrial or submarine fiber optics, wireless, and even satellite technology. As our Public Service Act has opened the doors and removed the restrictions on foreign investment, we foresee an increase in direct investment of overseas players. This will translate into better quality, availability, and affordability of telecommunication services all over the country. We come now to infrastructure. The backbone of an economy is its infrastructure. The infrastructure program of the Duterte administration must not only continue, but wherever possible, be expanded. We shall confidently build on this firm foundation established by my predecessor, as it is in building an edifice. We must keep the momentum and aspire to build better, more. Necessarily, infrastructure development will remain a very high priority in our drive for growth and employment. Once again, I will not suspend any of the ongoing projects, as those have already been shown to be of benefit to the public that they serve. We will continue to study the proposals that have been made. Infrastructure development spending will be sustained at 5 to 6% of GDP. The planned expansion of infrastructure projects, I believe, would be possible if we continue to encourage the participation of the private sector in the development of our programs. Public-private partnerships, or PPPs, hold great potential for that expansion, for infrastructure development, and for innovation. Our infrastructure development is of primary importance, as it is a necessary element to improve many other sectors, to include agriculture, tourism, general economic activity, and even to governance. It is my belief also that we have missed some great opportunities to develop our rail transport system. It is clear in my mind that railways offer great potential, as it continues to be the cheapest way of transporting goods and passengers. We can build upon already existing lines by modernizing these old railway systems. There are dozens of railway projects on the ground, above the ground, below ground, not just in Manila, but in other regions, at various stages of implementation and with a combined cost of 1.9 trillion pesos. This administration is committed to finish building the current portfolio of investments, approved railway projects such as the North-South Commuter Railway System, the 33-kilometer Metro Manila Subway Project, the 147-kilometer North-South Commuter Railway System, the 12-kilometer LRT-1 Cavite Extension, the 23-kilometer MRT-7, and the common station that will connect LRT-1, MRT-3, and MRT-7. And beyond NCR, larger scale railway systems like the 102-kilometer Mindanao Railway Project, the Panay Railway Project, and the Cebu Railway System will be integrated as a vital part of our transport and communication systems. We will also continue to improve our roads and transportation systems in key cities throughout the country through various projects, such as the Cebu Bus Rapid Transit, Davao High Priority Bus System, Ilocos Norte Transportation Hub, the El Nido Transport Terminal. My order to the Department of Transportation, or DOTR, is really very simple. Full speed ahead. Improving our railway system, along with modernizing existing airports and seaports, will maximize our strategic location in the Pacific and connect our many islands. A key sector in our transformation plans is that of energy. Another fundamental requirement for growth and increased employment will be the availability of cheap, reliable energy. This even comes under the category of ease of doing business. If we are to attract investors, both local and foreign, to set up shop here in the Philippines. At present, our demand for energy far exceeds our reliable supply. We must increase the level of energy production. We must look at every possible option that would be appropriate for the Philippine situation. There is some room to expand our present power supply through existing power sources, but this is only to a very limited extent. We must build new power plants. We must take advantage of all the best technology that is now available, especially in the areas of renewable energy. Our search for new power sources should always be with an eye to improving the mix of the energy supply between traditional and renewable sources. The technology on renewable energy is progressing rapidly, and many of these technologies are appropriate for the Philippines. We have already begun windmill power. We are now expanding very quickly our solar power production. For both offshore and onshore wind turbines, for example, the World Bank has calculated that there is a potential for 255 gigawatts by the year of 2030. Solar power has steadily increased its efficiency in converting sunlight to electrical power, which is particularly attractive for the Philippines. Because unlike wind power, solar power is practical almost everywhere in the Philippines all year round. In the move to lowering our carbon footprint caused by energy production, our advancement to renewables will have a lead time. In the interim, natural gas will hold the key. We will provide investment incentives by clarifying the uncertain policy in upstream gas, particularly in the area close to Malampaya. This requires clarification of the processes and review of service contracts policy. I believe that it is time also to re-examine our strategy towards building nuclear power plants in the Philippines. comply, of course, with the International Atomic Energy Agency regulations for nuclear power plants as they have been strengthened after Fukushima. In the area of nuclear power, there have been new technologies developed that allow smaller-scale modular nuclear plants and other derivations thereof. Once again, PPPs will play a part in support as funding in this period is limited. Furthermore, we must examine the entire system of transmission and distribution for the purpose of finding ways to lower the price of energy to the consumer and to industry. We must expand the network of our transmission lines while examining schemes to improve the operation of our electrical cooperatives. All this in aid of reducing energy costs, especially but not limited to households. All this impetus for development and growth we undertake within the context of accelerating climate change and extreme weather conditions. Though we are a minor contributor to climate change globally, we have the unfortunate distinction of being one of the most vulnerable countries to the effects of climate change. For the welfare of our people, it is incumbent upon us to alleviate the effects of that vulnerability. The use of renewable energy is at the top of our climate agenda. We will increase our use of renewable energy sources such as hydropower, geothermal power, solar, and wind. Geographically, we are a disaster-prone country. Capacity building for our natural disaster resiliency is therefore a must. Investment in science and technology is imperative to enable us to have accurate weather forecasts and on-time disaster alerts. Studies show that already now, many areas in the Philippines are at high risk from the rise in sea levels brought about by the increase in global temperature. We must adapt to this phenomenon with disaster-proof planning for our communities. We will also look into the precarious fresh water supply situation in the country, especially in our urban areas. Many of our water supply systems date back to the 1950s, and they must now be rehabilitated and improved. I've instructed the DNR, together with the DPWH, to explore possible partnerships with the private sector to address this crucial situation. The Philippines has excellent laws on the environment, but we have to guarantee that these laws are properly enforced. And this will require a great deal of coordination and cooperation between concerned government agencies and private stakeholders. Companies who exploit our natural resources must follow the law. We all have the responsibility to preserve this earth, for we are but custodians and we will pass on this great treasure to future generations. There is no question that the preservation of the environment is the preservation of life. If we cannot mitigate climate change, all our plans for the economy, all our plans for our future will be for naught. Bawat Pilipino sa ibayong dagat na nagsasakripisyong lisanin ang kanyang pamilya sa Pilipinas upang maghanap buhay ay nararapat lamang magkaroon ng pamahalaang matatawag nilang tahanan habang nasa ibang bayan. Ito ang papel na gagampanan ng kagawaran ng manggagawang mandarayuhan o Department of Migrant Workers matapos itong ideklara bilang ganap na ahensya ng gobyerno ng isang taon. Ang kagawarang ito ang magsisilbing kanlungan ng ating mga kababayan sa gitna ng mundong walang kasiguruhan at mahigpit na kompetisyon. Ito ang maglalatag sa kanila ng mga oportunidad. Titiyak na ang kanilang mga hanap buhay ay tugma sa kanilang mga kasanayan. Maninigurong akma ang sahod at maayos ang kalagayan sa kanilang mga kumpanya. at mangangalaga sa kanilang mga pamilya habang sila ay nasa malayo. Gagawin natin ito sa pamamagitan ng pag-aalis ng red tape sa sistema ng pagsusulong ng digital empowerment. We shall automate the verification of contracts and issue secure overseas employment certifications that you can keep on your smartphone. I call on the Department of Migrant Workers and the DICT to make this a top priority. Tinatawagan ko rin ang Department of Foreign Affairs na makipagtulungan sa Department of Migrant Workers na tiyakin ang lahat ng mga diplomatic post ay tutulong na agarang maibalik sa trabaho ang mga ating mga overseas Filipino workers na nawalan ng hanap buhay nitong nakalipas na ilang taon. Mula sa 3 buwan ay gagawin na lang nating 3 linggo para sa isang dayuhang employer na iproseso ang mga papeles ng Pilipinas ng Pilipinong nais nitong kunin bilang empleyado. Aatasan din natin ang kagawaran ng gawing simple ang komplikadong handbook ng mga tuntunin at regulasyon para sa mga OFW. Nang sa gayon ay maging malwan ang mga transaksyon may kinalaman sa kanilang pangingibang bansa. Mula sa handbook na may 240 seksyon ay gagawin nating pamphlet na lamang na hindi hihigit sa 100 pahina. Mahirap na nga ang buhay. Kaya naman, ayaw pa natin makitang lalo pang nahihirapan ang ating mga manggagawang mandarayuhan sa pagtupad sa kanilang mga pangarap. Para sa mga kababayan nating naiipit sa kaguluhan, inaabuso at nanganganib ang buhay, ikinagagalak kong sa ilalim ng aking pamumuno ay ilulunsad natin ang One Repatriation Command Center o ORCC. Ilalaan natin ang isang social media platform ng Department of Migrant Workers at ang hotline upang matulungan agad at maligtas sila mula sa mas higit na kapahamakan. Noon, nangungutang pa ang isang ina ng bawat OFW upang sumakay ng barko para pumunta sa Maynila at mangatok sa iba't ibang ahensya para mapauwi ang anak na inaapi. Ngayon, kami na ang tatawag sa mga magulang ng OFW para sabihin sa kanila ang petsa kung kailan nila mayayakap at makakapiling ang kanilang mga anak. Sa kasalukuyan ay nakikipag-ugnayan tayo sa pamahalaan ng Saudi Arabia upang buksan muli ang deployment. Kaya natin at gagawin natin ang makipagnegosasyon na mabigyan ang ating mga kababayan doon ng tamang pasahod at mapangalagaan ang kanilang karapatan at kapakanan. Muli natin patitibayin ang respeto at pagkakaibigan ng ating dalawang bansa tulad ng namamagitan sa ating ama sa kanilang hari. Sa mga susunod na buwan ay magtutungo si Secretary Susan Ople sa Saudi Arabia upang tiyakin na may sapat na puwersang magsisiguro na mabubuksan muli ang empleo sa bansa at para maisulong ang ating kampanya laban sa human trafficking. Ngayon, para naman sa mga anak na naiwan sa Pilipinas, titiyakin ng Department of Migrant Workers sa pamamagitan ng OWA na sila ay maipapasok sa magagandang paaralan, magtuturo sa kanila ng financial literacy, mental wellness, sports, sining, kultura. Ito ay mangyayari sa pakikipagtulungan ng iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan. Alagaan natin ang kabataang Pilipino sapagkat sila ang kinabukasan ng ating inang bayan. Sa ating mga kababayan na nasa ibang bansa, you deserve a home in government, not only for the money that you send home, But you are not cold tools of the economy. You deserve it for your sacrifices for our country and your perseverance and excellence in the global arena. You OFWs represent the fighting faith of the Filipinos as a nation and as a people. Let us transform your overseas journey into inspirational stories for all time. Thanks to you, our dear legislators, and of course to the man every OFW now refers to as their tatay, President Rodrigo Duterte. You passed the law that created this new home for our OFWs. On the area of foreign policy, I will not preside over any process that will abandon even 1 square inch of territory of the Republic of the Philippines to any foreign power. With respect to our place in the community of nations, the Philippines shall continue to be a friend to all, an enemy to none. The Philippines has always been open and welcoming to all our foreign friends and visitors. That is our worldview. That is our culture. But let me be clear. We are very jealous of all that is Filipino. We will be a good neighbor, always looking for ways to collaborate and cooperate with the end goal of mutually beneficial outcomes. If we agree, we will cooperate and we will work together. And if we differ, let us talk some more until we develop a consensus. After all, that is the Filipino way. But we will not waver. We will stand firm in our independent foreign policy with the national interest as our primordial guide. We commit to maintaining good relations with the rest of the world. As a matter of fact, it is my sincere belief that the need for strong bonds and collaboration among nations emerges in the direst of times, such as in a pandemic. The partnerships and alliances that we make with all will provide stability that all nations will need as we emerge into this new global economy. The Philippines will continue to promote stronger and multifaceted relationships with all our partners around the world. We are, in fact, grateful for the messages of support and offers of help that we have received from many of our friends in the international community. This has been communicated to us through the different envoys and ambassadors here in the Philippines. Such strong relationships can only be beneficial to all involved. As I am here today addressing the legislature, allow me now to propose legislation that we would like you to pass in support of these programs. 1, National Government Right-Sizing Program, a reform mechanism that seeks to enhance the government's institutional capacity to perform its mandate and to provide better services while ensuring optimal and efficient use of resources. Compared to previous government reorganization efforts, the NGRP will entail a comprehensive strategic review of the functions, operations, organization, system, and processes of the different agencies, and massive and transformational initiatives in agencies concerned, such as mergers, consolidations, splitting, transfer, and even the abolition of some offices. The right-sizing efforts will also involve the conduct of a comprehensive strategic review of functions, programs, and projects that will cut across various agencies. Number 2, a budget modernization bill. This seeks to institutionalize a cash-based budgeting system under Executive Order number 91, Series 2019, to strengthen fiscal discipline in the allocation and use of budget resources by ensuring that every peso budgeted by the government would lead to the actual delivery of programs and projects. The full implementation of the CBS is timely and vital as the government executes response and recovery plans post-pandemic. Number 3, Tax Package 3 Valuation Reform Bill. This bill provides for the establishment of real property values and valuation standards across the country, and B, the development of real property information system that provides for the database of all real property transaction and declarations in the country. Number 4, Passive Income and Financial Intermediary Taxation Act. This seeks to reform the taxation of capital income and financial services by redesigning the financial sector taxation into simpler, fairer, more efficient, and a revenue-neutral tax system. It also represents to adopt a regionally competitive tax system. Number 5, E-Government Act, which provides for the establishment of the e-government master plan, which shall cover all e-government services and processes. Number 6, the Internet Transaction Act, or e-commerce law, which aims to establish an effective regulation of commercial activities through the Internet or electronic means to ensure that consumer rights and data privacy are protected, innovation is encouraged, fair advertising practices and competition are promoted. Online transactions are secured, intellectual property rights are protected, and product standards and safety are observed. Number 7, Government Financial Institutions Unified Initiatives to Distressed Enterprises for Economic Recovery. This seeks to provide financial assistance to distressed enterprises critical to economic recovery through programs and initiatives to be implemented by the Land Bank of the Philippines, the Development Bank of the Philippines, and the Philippine Guarantee Corporation for purposes of addressing liquidity or solvency problems of MSMEs and strategically important industries to encourage their continued operation and maintain employment. Number 8, the establishment of a Medical Reserve Corps. Establishes a Medical Reserve Corps under the Health and Emergency Management Bureau of the DOH. The MRC shall be composed of licensed physicians, medical students who have completed their 4 years of medical courses, graduates of medicine, registered nurses, licensed allied health professionals. Number 9, National Disease Prevention Management Authority. This bill seeks to create the Center for Disease Prevention and Control attached to the DOH. Number 10, the creation of the Virology Institute of the Philippines. This will create the Virology Science and Technology Institute of the Philippines as an attached agency of the DOST. All offices and units under the DOST with functions related to virology shall now be transferred to the Virology Institute of the Philippines. Number 11, the Department of Water Resources. This seeks to create the Department of Water Resources and adopts the integrated water resource management as the strategic framework for national water management, policy making, and planning. Number 12, Unified System of Separation, Retirement, and Pension. This grants a monthly disability pension in lieu of disability benefits provided under existing laws for military and uniformed personnel retired by reasons of disability. Number 13, the E-Governance Act. It promotes the use of internet, and other ICT to provide opportunities for citizens. Number 14, the National Land Use Act. This will provide for a rational and holistic management and development of our country's land and water resources, hold owners accountable for making these lands productive and sustainable, strengthen the LGU to manage ecological balance within its jurisdiction. It also provides for land use and physical planning framework as a mechanism in determining policies and principles to implement this legislative measure. Number 15, the National Defense Act. This seeks to amend the antiquated National Defense Act of 1935 to provide for a change in the military structure of the armed forces of the Philippines that is more responsive to current and future non-conventional security threats to the country's territorial integrity and national sovereignty. Number 16, Mandatory Reserve Officers Training Corps and National Service Training Program. This seeks to reinstitute the ROTC program as a mandatory component of senior high school programs, grades 11 and 12, in all public and private tertiary level educational institutions. The aim is to motivate, train, organize, and mobilize students for national defense preparedness, including disaster preparedness and capacity building for risk-related situations. Number 17, enactment of an enabling law for the natural gas industry. This seeks to foster the development of the midstream natural gas industry in a bid to strengthen Philippine energy security by diversifying the country's primary sources of energy and promoting the role of natural gas as a complementary fuel to variable renewable energy. Number 18, amendments to the Electric Power Industry Reform Act, or EPIRA. This aims to improve the implementation of the law's provisions and enhance its effectiveness to address the high cost of electricity, alleged market collusion, and insufficient power supply. The bill seeks to restructure the Energy Regulation Commission to foster accountability and improve the Commission's government system that would ensure consumer protection and in enhancing competitive operation of the electricity market. Number 19, amendments to the Build, Operate, Transfer law. This seeks to improve the implementation of the public-private partnership program and to be able to direct the desired outputs and outcomes in line with the strategic development targets of the country. Specifically, the amendments seek to, 1, address the ambiguities in the existing law, 2, address the bottlenecks and challenges affecting the implementation of the PPP program, and 3, foster a more competitive and enabling environment for PPPs. To my fellow Filipinos, ang aking mga minamahal na kababayan, batid ko na hindi madali ang ating pinagdaraanan sa nakaraang higit na 2 taon. Alam ko rin na ang bawat isa sa inyo ay ginagawa ang lahat ng inyong makakaya upang patuloy na harapin ang lahat na pagsubok sa kasalukuyan. I do not intend to diminish the risks and the challenges that we face in this turbulent time in global history. And yet, I see sunlight filtering through these dark clouds. We have assembled the best Filipino minds to help navigate us to this global crisis that we are now facing. We will endure. Let our Filipino spirit ever remain undimmed. I know this in my mind. I know it in my heart. I know it in my very soul. The state of the nation is sound. Thank you and good afternoon. Marami pong salamat sa inyong lahat. Yeah, I couldn't leave anything out.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the part of the Senate, the joint session is adjourned. On the part of the House of Representatives, the joint session is adjourned.
Inyo pong nasaksiyan ang unang Sona ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos Jr. Himayin pa po natin yan sa pagbabalik ng special coverage ng One News at 1PH. All sides, all the time. Narito pa rin tayo sa special coverage ng One News at 1PH sa unang Sona ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. At kakatapos nga lang po ng kanyang speech na tumagal po ng mahigit 1 oras. Ito'y 100 pages based dun sa transcript na nakuha natin, mga kapatid.
An hour and 23 minutes. Okay.
Started right on the dot, we should point out.
Yes.
On time, on the dot.
Okay, so ang kasama ko po yung mga editors ng one news at one page. Ano? So, since sila po ay talaga nakinig dun sa speech, well, sa dulo, sinabi niya, State of the Nation is sound. Tapos, nagkaroon siya ng parang laundry list ng hindi, wag na muna yung mga yung 19 billions for Congress. It's more of, sabi niya, tuloy yung mga build projects, merong hospital na mga gusto niya sa buong kapuluan, tapos merong amnesty for farmers, care for OFWs, which means gastos. Pero meron bang at least doon sa mga nakita natin na pwedeng pagkunan ng pondo from what he declared kanina?
Sa 19 na bills na priority agenda bills niya na binanggit kanina in the latter part of his speech, I see at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6
income
six
generators.
I might be wrong, Regina is the expert here, but
it's correct.
6 measures with
Income generator, yeah.
With income.
Yeah.
So tataas po yung mga real estate taxes.
Yan ang
Handa
bad
nyo na,
news.
ang amilyar.
Yan ang
Yung
bad
amilyar,
news.
correct.
Hindi nila sinasabing tuwira na tataas.
Tataas.
But
So they're looking at
that's where it's
measures.
headed. Oo, yun yung point.
Magkakaroon ng taxes ang digital economy.
Meron.
Oh, yung mga online seller, mga vlogger, itatax na kayo.
Magkakaroon din ng taxes ang capital gains. Well,
Yes.
capital gains in itself is a type of tax. Passive income.
Yung mga
He's
nag-stock market, tsaka
pushing for
nagbabanks.
Passive Income Financial Intermediary Taxation Act. Yun yung
I think they're
formal
trying
name.
to cushion the impact of these tax measures
Yeah.
by couching them in very technical terms. Yung passive income intermediary.
Yeah.
Pero yun, basically, what it is taxes on income that you made on buying financial instruments. So, stocks, bonds, kung anumang income that you gain from those will be taxed. Just to clarify, there is already a tax on those products that was rationalized by the train law. Pero we will aim to see what they're going to try to do moving further.
Okay, so later on, we'll try to analyze some of the 19 earmarked as priority measures para sa Kongreso or sa Senado at saka sa mga kapulungan
Some
ng
other
mga kapatid.
highlights, Tito Jovi, no?
Yeah.
There's also a bill, well, I guess this is no big surprise. Mandatory ROTC will be back.
Yes.
Okay.
Sa grade 11 and grade 12.
Yes, and
Tsaka
then
first 2 years of college. Yeah. So ano pa ba yung nakita natin?
our very own Center for Disease Control. I think
Alam
he
mo,
wants to put
that's
that up.
music sa ears ng mga natin,
Health
mga doktor
professionals.
natin, dahil
At yung
at least may ganon.
Vaccine Institute.
Vaccine Institute at saka Department of Water Resources. I think this is very important as we grapple with
Alam mo na,
water
tatlo yun.
supply problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, pero marami nagtatanong sa ating mga viewers, ano daw ang tingin natin bilang mga media practitioners doon sa naging presentasyon for today, communications-wise at saka at least visual.
Well, dramatic yung mga shots ng direktor. Nakita
Totoo.
natin, no?
Totoo.
So, parang kakaiba sa mga naunang yung pagpasok pa lang ni Pangulong Marcos, di ba?
And that's something else.
Parang pelikula eh.
Sabi ko parang may ibang shots parang halaw sa State of the Union sa Amerika.
It was very smooth.
It was
The
very
production quality was very high.
So this Sona, very first Sona, was well executed. Let's hope that the rest of government will be able to execute as perfectly as they've executed this Sona. Because we've seen naman in the past Sonas, although kahit sabihin natin Sona lang to, but impressive as a live event that was mounted. It was very impressive.
Okay, we didn't count ilang beses na pumalakpak because matagal na namin tinigilan yung tradisyon
Pero may dalawang-
ng media. Pero may dalawang
standing
tayo.
ovation.
Ano itong dalawang to?
Ano yung dalawa na yun?
Yung una, yung doon sa specialty hospital sa mga probinsya.
Sa mga buong kapuluan.
At
Yes.
pangalawa, yung sa he will not give an inch of our territory.
Ayun, yes.
Foreign policy.
Yung sa specialty hospital sa mga regions, I think tontuwa doon, especially mga congressman.
Oo.
That will mean health services coming closer to their constituents.
Kasi kung heart center, meron sa Cebu at sa Davao. Di ba?
Yung pangalawa naman yun, I will not give a square inch of our
For
territory.
territory.
Yes.
Yes, oo.
Foreign
But
policy.
it needs to be said also, Manny, no? Our issue in West Philippine Sea is not about territory.
Hindi. Ano
It's
yun?
not about
Sovereign
territory.
rights.
Sovereign rights po, yeah.
Sa business sector, anything
Parang wala naman siyang malaking ambisyon sa budget. Ano? Kasi parang 5 trillion pa rin ang gusto niya eh. Yung kanyang infrastructure spending parang patuloy pa rin yung 5 to 6% ng GDP,
Correct.
no?
Yep.
So,
The
parang halos
ecozones,
ganun lang.
yung ecozones
Oo,
continue.
ecozones continue.
Two things struck me about it. Number one, if napansin nyo, there was a lot of mention of the private sector. So that was very different from what President Duterte did in his first few years. This
Yes.
time around, left, right, and center, the private sector, the private funding, etc., etc. So
PPP.
talagang wini-welcome niya ang participation ng private sector. And yung pangalawa is his focus on more modern technology. So I heard mention of AI, high-tech manufacturing, robotics, etc., etc. Again, that's the first time I believe I've heard that from a president, right? Which is a very good sign because again, it shows that he's
The port
looking towards the
industry
future.
revolution.
Yes.
Okay. So alam ko marami pa tayong pwedeng makuha from that very long speech. Pero kailangan lang natin mag-pause for a short break. Pagbalik natin, we'll give some more highlights and actual sound bites from the President. So wag po kayong bibitiw mga kapatid. Babalik pa ang One News at 1 PH special coverage ng unang Sona ni PBBM. All sides, all the time. Nagbabalik po ang special coverage ng One News at One PH at napaka-interesting po ng discussion off-cam. Pero babalikan po muna natin ang isang light moment kanina sa pagitan po ng Pangulo at ng kanyang First Lady. Pati na rin po iba pang highlights mula sa kakatapos ng unang Sona.
The honorable members of the Cabinet, our First Lady, Luis Araneta Marcos, and our children. The Department of Water Resources. This seeks to create the Department of Water Resources and adopts the integrated water resource management as the strategic framework for national water management, policymaking, and planning. You OFWs represent the fighting faith of the Filipinos as a nation and as a people. Let us transform your overseas journey into inspirational stories for all time. Thanks to you, our dear legislators, and of course to the man every OFW now refers to as their tatay, President Rodrigo Duterte. You passed the law that created this new home for our OFWs.
Okay, some highlights po mula doon sa naging speech nga ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos Jr. Pero balikan ko lang, may interesting kayong sinabi off-cam kanina while we were waiting doon sa mga reminders. Pero yung continuity na sinasabi nyo, mabuting sa inyo naman galing. Continuity from the father's term, tama ba?
No, what we noticed a while ago is that it's a continuity of economic policies that have been placed since 1986. For those of us who are expecting a reversal to the time of the father, when there was a strong government presence or intervention in the economy, that's not what we're seeing with this legislative agenda of the president.
So it's very liberal, very market-oriented, yung approach niya.
And it's also a continuity from the Duterte administration. Basically, because especially the OFW, he continued what the President Duterte did.
So one example of it was there were some people who were expecting to hear about the oil price stabilization fund, yung subsidy for the oil industry, wala siyang na-mention. So he didn't ask for it. So
speaking of walang na-mention, meron nag-tweet kanina sinasabi, minamiss lang daw ba or wala talagang anything about corruption and human rights?
Wala.
Well,
wala din nung inaugural speech.
I think it's all about a legislative agenda.
Yeah, it's really focused on the
economy, and then the economy and all that. In fact, I was a bit surprised that Reg, I mean, he mentioned a lot in the first part of his speech. He was talking about agriculture. Okay, how he intended to achieve food security for this country, and yet there is no bill related to agriculture in the legislative agenda that the president cited.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Walang specific bill, at least. Walang subsidies.
Executive action siguro.
Closest siguro, National Land Use Act.
Maybe that one, yeah.
But the Land Use Act has been there for some time. Bago pa si Duterte, nandiyan na yung Land Use Act na hindi pa pasa-pasa. Kasi ang daming landowners sa ating Kongreso.
Tito Manny, anything na para sa pandinig ng mga nasa militar natin o kapulisan?
Well, yung sa military, at saka sa police and uniform, I think yung separation and pension fund. Kasi dati, nung unang panahon, merong RSBS. Yung Retirement and Separation Mutual Benefit, nakurap yan ng mga general. Nawala,
Napunta sa mga na-invest sa mga...
Sa golf course.
Sa golf courses. That went bust, I think. Went bust after 1997.
So, ang ating sundalo at pulis ay umasa sa GSIS. Siguro masyado mabigat. So, itong bagong proposal ni Pangulong Marcos na gumawa ng separation and retirement system para sa ating mga kasundaluhan at kapulisan ay isang malaking hakbang para ma-normalize. Kasi alam mo, ang budget ng military, siguro 70% ay napunta sa sweldo at pensyon.
Okay. Okay. Tapos doon sa talagang doon sa soundbite na pinili ng ating mga producers kanina ay centered more on the OFWs Tapos at least mga 2 times yata na pinakita pa yung ang mga nasa Zoom na live na nanonood ng mga OFWs natin So nandun yung may focus doon sa kanila at yung part na yon talagang diretsong Filipino o Tagalog yung pagkasabi niya about yung papaanong aalagaan ng mga OFWs at saka sila daw ay yung mga kamag-anak at anak nila dito ay kailangan
hindi lang yung mga OFW. At nabanggit din ni Pangulong Marcos na pupunta si Secretary Tuts Oble sa Saudi Arabia upang kausapin ng gobyerno ron na buksan uli ang deployment ng mga Pilipino. Kasi alam nyo, 1 million ang Pilipino ng Saudi Arabia.
So he talked about OFWs, he talked about he talked about our farmers, but he also talked about our students, our educational system that he wanted it to be competitive again and improve again. But in those areas, there are no bills that are related to those areas. But let's see how he intends to carry out the reforms or things that he wants to carry out in those sectors.
Actually, kasi parang medyo konti ang 19, Ine-expect ko mas marami pang i-earmark, pero 90. Siguro ito yung highlighted.
First year lang to Joby.
19 for the first year
For the first year.
Okay, first year pa lang to.
Pero actually, when you look at it, the 19, they're quite ambitious. So baka naman talagang they put a
it sounds very ambitious. In fact, if you look at this 19 legislative agenda bills, or legislative agenda, they look like good for 6 years.
Ganun kataas
medyo.
yung target.
Actually, yung sa speech ni Pangulong Marcos, lalo sa economy, it talks about 2028 Yung growth targets, yung inflation, yung export, di ba? So, hindi lang pang 1 year.
Sige, let's wrap this up by giving our prediction. At least, napupuso naman natin to bilang nagsa-story, con tayo lagi. So, I'm sure mag-guest tayo ng mga analysts, may mga businessmen tayong i-guest. Ano sa tingin yung magiging, pagtingin nila dun sa mga nasabi ngayong araw na ito? Unahin ko na, kung biglang i-guest si Solita Monsod or Joey Salceda in our programs in the coming days.
Jove, I think they're going to say it hit all the right notes because he started with the economy, which is what most people were expecting. In addressing inflation, he spoke very candidly at the start. Sabi niya, we're living in difficult times, which is true. So I think the business industry is going to say that it hits the right notes. The question is, can we execute?
Dito Manny?
Ang mahirap lang, tingin ko, kung yung ating Kongreso will really cooperate with the President. Kasi marami doon sa hinihingi niya, itatamaan yung mga interest ng ating mga lawmakers.
But Tito Patrick, we have the super majority now.
I'd like to think that he is not going to have any difficulty getting the cooperation of both houses of Congress, Senate, and the House of Representatives. I see a continuity. He promised that to the voters in the last election. But what we're seeing is a different tone. And maybe slightly different targets of what to achieve. I mean, we're coming from an administration that promised an end to the drug problem in 6 months. Okay? We were a presidency or an administration that was known for shortcuts. Okay. So let's see how this will. But the manners will. I'm expecting to see a different kind of governance style.
That's a great point. Walang mention of the war on drugs.
I mean, the last 6 years, we always hear, I will kill you, I will end the drug war. Pero this administration is focusing on agriculture, on inflation, on education, and on health. So, I think it promises a lot.
So, may plano.
May plano.
plano.
Okay. So, medyo bitin lang po mga kapatid. Pero alam niyo naman, may mga iba kami mga programa pa ngayong buong gabi na ito na pwede niyo pang panoorin for more discussion. Hanggang bukas, I'm sure, yan ang pag-uusapan. Tito Patrick, Regina, and Tito Manny. Okay. Maraming salamat po sa pagtutok dito po sa One News at 1PH. Sa ngalan po ng ating news editors na sina Patrick Paes, Regina Lay at Manny Mogato, ako po si Joey Francisco. Ito po ang ating special coverage sa unang Sona ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos Jr. All sides, all the time.
Our tax system will be adjusted in order to catch up with the rapid developments of the digital economy, including the imposition of value-added tax on digital service providers. The initial revenue impact will be around 11.7 billion pesos in 2023 alone. Pero hindi na natin kakayanin ang isa pang lockdown. Wala na tayong gagawing lockdown. Dapat natin manalisin